Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Berman. So it's a new kind of cabin pressure. Air travelers all across the country at this moment experiencing deep delays. The FAA ordered cuts now in effect. What the Transportation Secretary is telling NewsNation tonight about how long it could take to get the airports back up to speed. All this, of course, is a result of the government shutdown. Day 38, President Trump at the White House as Democrats float a new offer.
Democrats are ready to clear the way to quickly pass a government funding bill that includes health care affordability.
They're crazy. They're crazy, but they don't care if they hurt the country.
But Republicans already saying no deal. Also tonight, the Secretary of War releasing a new drug boat blow-up video. Why Pete Hegseth told the National War College today that we are now on wartime footing. And in New York City, Zohran Mamdani riding to victory in part on a promise of universal child care. But it's New Mexico that's actually making history, the first to offer it statewide. We'll show you tonight how it is playing out there. But first tonight, Friday night flights. As of this moment, more than 1,000 flights canceled today. More than 4,400 delayed as the mandatory FAA flight reductions now in effect. 4% of travel reduced at 40 main airports. But the effects here are being felt nationwide, of course, due to unpaid air traffic controllers and staffing shortages. All this as Washington stays stuck in a state of deja vu. Still no end in sight. Even with today, Democrats offering up a new tactic, flying high off of Tuesday night's election victories. They are offering to open up the government in exchange for a year-long extension of the Obamacare tax credits. But that was quickly shot down by Republicans. The Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, telling NewsNation today, it is time to get a deal done and pay the air traffic controllers.
Stop playing politics and leveraging the American people in their travel. Stop, open the government, go through the process and debate. That's the way you're supposed to do it.
The former head of the TSA, John Pistol, with me in a moment about what all of us can expect going forward. But first to our Jessica Cartalia, live from Newark, there in New Jersey, where the delays continue to mount. Jessica.
Yeah, we've been watching them all day. Hi, Blake. You know, Secretary Duffy also saying that they're starting with 4%, then it's going to increase to 10%, and it could go as high as 20% if this government shutdown continues. But I have to show you what's going on behind me. We're at Newark. It's a Friday night. This is typically a very busy time to fly, but look at the line. It is going so quickly here. So many flights have been canceled. People got the warning, they checked ahead of their flight with their airline and their carrier and decided not to come. We spoke with someone whose flight was canceled, then delayed. Take a listen.
My flight got canceled to and from Boston, but I got a flight with United and they were able to kind of figure it out really quickly. So I got very lucky because I was looking at train options, but the train prices are now more expensive than the flights.
Yeah, just a difficult day all around. So, Blake, what do you do if you have a flight and you have to get to the airport or you have to get to your destination, a wedding or something you can't miss? All of the airlines say download their app. That's the best way that you can get real-time information about cancellations. You can rebook a flight. Another airline CEO, the CEO of Frontier Airlines, also encouraging people, this is unprecedented, to book another flight with another carrier just to be safe. We don't usually hear things like that happening. But good news here at Newark if you are planning on flying out tonight, Blake.
Wow, Jessica Cartalia, live for us tonight. Just one of the many scenes across the country this evening. Jessica, thank you. Now, while much of the focus is on planes coming and going, canceled or delayed, whatever it may be, TSA workers also going without pay. For many, it's making it harder for them to get to work.
If I'm not feeling good, I'm not coming in. If I don't have gas, I'm not coming to work.
Here now with us tonight on the Hill. Once again, John Pistol, so nice to see you, and I'm so glad to talk to you on this evening. John, of course, was the former head of the TSA during the Obama administration. John, we saw those lines there behind Jessica. Obviously, every airport's a different story, right? What is the story right now and really in the coming days as folks head to the airport and try to get their flights?
Well, it seems like this is the calm before the storm, if you will, that obviously Secretary Duffy, Secretary of Transportation, has given everybody a heads up that this is going to get worse, and especially if it continues, that being the government shutdown, as we head into the holidays. And the question is, what would the resolution be, and how do people plan on that? With over 2 million people a day on average, 3 million around the holidays, the Thanksgiving holidays. And so that becomes a question. And one of the things that I am concerned about, and I know a number of my colleagues who've worked at TSA, FAA, Department of Homeland Security and Transportation, is how distracted might the TSA officers, over 50,000 frontline officers who are impacted by this, all 60+ thousand, of course, going unpaid, and then the air traffic controllers at Department of Transportation, are they being distracted because, as we heard from that one TSO, Transportation Security Officer, if they can't afford to pay for the basic necessities, whether that's food, childcare, transportation to get to the airport, then even if they do sacrifice and get there, are they distracted? And does that create a vulnerability, either in terms of safety, which is, of course, FAA's purview, or security?
I mean, it's basic human nature, right? We sit here in early November. Of course, we're all eyeing Turkey Day at the end of the month. Here was the travel warning from the U.S. Travel Association. The damage from this shutdown is growing by the hour, with 60% of Americans reconsidering their travel plans. Congress needs to do its job. At what point, John, do we get to the point where it's not Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving week, but even that starts to get impacted?
Well, right, because everybody, whether it's business or pleasure, people make plans often well in advance. And so if there's unpredictability in the system, it just creates havoc for all the people who are involved in the transportation business, particularly as it relates to aviation with the air traffic controllers and transportation security officers. It's that uncertainty that creates problems, I believe, for people, because if you can't, the one passenger you interviewed said she's able to get another flight on United. That's great. I think that's going to be the exception more than the rule as we move forward with further restrictions. Look, less than 4% today. If we get up to 10%, heaven forbid, 20%, I mean, that's just going to shut things down in a dramatic way.
Daily passengers through TSA checkpoints so far in November, 2.3 million. It's slightly less than the average, but you can see still kind of hanging in there with the norm. We'll see how it moves in the days to come. John Pistol, former head of the TSA, with us tonight. Thank you, sir. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you.
Joining us now here on the Hill, he is, as you probably know if you watch this show, the Republican from the great state of Tennessee, Congressman Tim Burchett. Congressman, thanks for being with us here tonight. Obviously, there's the safety, right? Everybody wants every single flight to be safe, bar none. That's a non-negotiable. But now with Sean Duffy talking about 4%, 10% to 20%, are we also watching a negotiation?
I don't know if it's a negotiation or not, and thank you for having me on. I just realized I'm wearing something from the Senator Fetterman collection. That's not my intention, but
it's all good. It's a Friday night, sir.
Right on. But no, I think everything is a negotiation. Every move is one way or the other. But the Republicans have staked their ground. We said we want a clean CR. It's what the Democrats have voted on 13 times in the past. They don't like Trump. Schumer doesn't like AOC. He sees the far left. He's got to draw them in. He knows that if AOC announces tomorrow, she'll raise $10 million over the weekend that she's running for the Senate. And he was trying. And look, that's what leadership is about, unfortunately, in both parties. It's about holding on to leadership. It's about, schmoozing enough to your own party members that they'll walk the plank, literally. And you're seeing that with the Democrats. I mean, if I have to read the lies one more time from any of them about the Republicans' health care problem, we didn't create this. This is Obamacare. And then Here was President Trump just a little while ago, Congressman. He said the United States Senate should not leave town until they have a deal to end the Democrat shutdown, as he puts it. So he wants the Senate to stay here and get a deal done. I had Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene on the show earlier this week. Here's what she said. I want to get your reaction.
The fact that the House has been closed for 6 weeks now is a complete and total, utter failure. And that's on the Speaker of the House. While the rest of America is going to work every single day, you're going to work. People in this building are going to work. Mike Johnson is telling us to stay home and not do our job.
She right there? You got any issue with what she says?
Marjorie's my friend, but the truth is we did our job. And there's a lot going on there behind the scenes, and everybody knows it.
Like
the Republicans did their job. We voted for a clean CR, the same CR that the Democrats voted for 13 times in the past. And so people are always at odds with leadership, and that's just the way it is. We're in this thing for the long haul. I think we better fix it. I agree with President Trump that the Senate needs to stay in Washington and not come home till they fix this dadgum problem.
What's wrong with the deal that Chuck Schumer put out there today, or the offer that Chuck Schumer put out there today, which was essentially open the government and extend the Obamacare tax credits for a year? What's wrong with that?
Well, what's wrong with President Trump's idea of opening the government, and then he'll negotiate the health care crisis that the Democrats created? They just want another year of this thing. It funds the insurance companies. Let's look at who makes the profit. Multi-billion-dollar profits with the insurance. You see Senator Warren out there running from this. And the reason is because the Democrats are being funded by them. They are being funded by this thing. Their party is being funded by it. That's who's getting fat off Obamacare. It's not the doctors. It's not the patients. It sure as heck isn't the patients. They were lied to from the start. Remember Pelosi said we've got to pass it to know what's in it? That's exactly what this is about. The K Street lobbyists are just waving, it's like they got a $5 bill and they throw it on a fishing line and run it down the hall to the Senate chambers, and all the Democrats are chasing it. And that's exactly what this is about. It's not about taking care of people. It's about power. It's about control. It's arrogance. It's Washington, D.C. to a T, and it needs to change. And this is what happens when 12% of the population goes to the polls.
Over under Thanksgiving, this ends. What are you taking?
I think it's going to go on after Thanksgiving.
You think?
Yeah, I think the pain's going to continue until the TSA, you have the 3 or 4 Democrats peel off and capitulate on this thing. And then they're going to come back and say, hey, this is our health care issue. Let's come to the table. Let's quit suffering. Let's get to the table on this health care issue. And until that happens, I don't see it happening.
We'll leave it there. Congressman Tim Burchett, live tonight from Knoxville. I don't know if they're playing this weekend or not, but good luck to Rocky Top if so. Congressman, or not? Okay. There you go.
It's an open day. We win this weekend. Thanks.
All right, there we go. We'll catch you next time. Thank you, sir. Still to come tonight here on The Hill. Zohran Mamdani says every parent in the Big Apple should get free child care. But did you know that one state, as of this week, is already doing just that? Is it going as planned? Plus, no more peacetime mindset. The Secretary of War says the U.S. is pivoting to a wartime footing. His message to America's enemies tonight. And fresh off an election sweep, there remains one big question for Democrats. Is anyone in charge? I thank you for being with us tonight here on The Hill. I'm Blake Berman. See you back on the other side of the break, 4 minutes away. All right, so one of the big stories this week, of course, the historic win in New York City. The mayor-elect there, Zohran Mamdani, now faces a new challenge. One of the things he talked about out on the trail, implementing his campaign's promised universal child care. Now, just days before New Yorkers hit the ballot boxes, New Mexico actually became the first state as a whole to put that very idea into practice. But already they're running into some issues. Right before the plan went into effect, they found that there aren't enough child care centers. There's only enough openings for about 1 out of every 3 children. And the shortage is even worse in some of the rural parts of that state. So how's it going there, and what does it look like? Joining me now, live from New Mexico this evening, she is the Democratic Congresswoman from that state, Melanie Stansbury. Congresswoman, thanks for being with us tonight on this Friday. So first week there, obviously a big issue, an important story in your backyard. What can you tell us about how it's going?
Yeah, well, it's important to understand that New Mexico's early child care program actually is more than a decade in the making. In order to actually create the fund that would make it possible for this program to exist, we started more than a decade ago trying to get a resolution passed through our state legislature that would allow New Mexico's permanent fund to be invested in early childhood care. We passed that resolution several years ago. It then went to a ballot measure. Over 70% of New Mexicans voted for universal child care, and now the state is standing that program up. And we didn't just discover a couple of days ago that there wasn't enough early childhood education centers. That's something we've been working on for years. Every state faces challenges in making sure that there's access to care, even in a system where families have to pay. But New Mexico is helping to bridge the gap through my congressional funding. We've helped to fund 4 early childhood education centers in 2 tribal communities and 2 rural communities. We're working across the state to help create new child care programs. And all of this will be supported through a mix of federal funding, state funding, and essentially every single family in New Mexico who wants to put their kid in pre-K or early childhood education care gets to do so for free, and they will save $12,000 a year. And I want to say one more thing, which is that
because I got a couple follow-ups here.
Yeah, our early childhood education program is based on Washington, D.C.'s. And in fact, our cabinet secretary for early education is literally the person who implemented D.C.'s universal pre-K program. So we're building on the success of that program.
Do you think the wealthiest in your state should be able to send their kids to this for free?
It's a universal program. So, just like other countries where there's universal childcare, we know that when childcare is taken off the plate of all families, whether they're working families, they're low income, they're middle class, that relieves families to be able to invest in going back to school, to buying houses, to changing careers. And we also know that it lowers the barrier for all children to get early care. And that actually improves the long-term outcomes, not only for those children, but also for the economy overall. For example, if you look at Washington, D.C., workforce participation by women skyrocketed after universal pre-K went into effect, and we expect the same here in New Mexico as well.
You talked about the funding. A lot of the funding also comes from oil and gas revenues. New Mexico is the second biggest state in the United States when it comes to oil and gas, behind Texas. I was on your campaign website, and you talk about renewable energy and climate change and all that. So I wonder how you square the oil and gas industry being a part of the funding, given views on climate change and renewables.
Well, so these two things are not mutually exclusive. New Mexico, like many oil and gas production states, has state lands that generate income from natural resource production. And so New Mexico, over the last 10 years or so, has seen exponential increases in revenue. And so our state legislators, and I was actually in the state legislature and voted to do so, decided to take some of the profits that were made through that increase in revenue and invest it in a permanent fund that is interest bearing to fund early childhood education. So that is just about using state revenues and managing it smartly and using those financial resources to invest in early childhood care.
Over in New York City, Zohran Mamdani has talked about this. Obviously, this is something that's been talked about for a while, but he brought it to the fold nationally in recent weeks as well. He's talked about for children as young as 6 weeks old, and for pay parity for daycare workers, the same as essentially public school teachers. Do you think that's feasible?
I don't serve in the legislature or any public body in the state of New York, so I'm not familiar with their financial situation. But, we are also fighting in New Mexico to make sure that our child care workers also receive the same benefits and pay that public school teachers do as well. I think that's an essential part of making sure that our system is sustainable, but I can't speak to New York City and to the state of New York's finances.
First state in the country to do it. Pretty remarkable. It's been talked about for quite some time. They put it into action this week. By the way, 20,604 children born in the state of New Mexico last year. Congresswoman Stansberry, thanks for being with us tonight here on The Hill. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Of course. All right, still much more tonight. Other side of the break. The Trump administration moving ahead with those drug boat strikes. We saw more of that video just in the recent hours. The Secretary of War saying today, we need to take a wartime footing. What's going on here? And is it ready for 2028 already? Where Gavin Newsom is headed next when The Hill returns. Welcome back. Just about 6:30 here on the East Coast on this Friday night. U.S. forces striking yet another alleged drug trafficking boat last evening in the Caribbean as the White House ramps up its international war on drugs. This is at least the 17th attack of its kind in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific since September that we know of. At least 70 people have been killed in the president's anti-narcotics campaign. And the reason for it, the administration says, is to save lives here at home. Today on Long Island, in New York, for example, officials announcing they dismantled a drug network responsible for flooding the area with fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. The local district attorney saying they found enough fentanyl to potentially kill every single person that lives in Suffolk County, roughly 1.5 million people. Laura Ingle, live tonight on Long Island with how they broke all this up. Laura?
Yeah, this is an investigation, Blake, that has been going on for over 8 months. And today we saw on full display powdered drugs, pills, stacks of cash, guns, even a kilo press. All items that were seized during this raid that was announced by the New York reps for the DEA, the Suffolk County District Attorney. Basically, every form of law enforcement that is in New York was taking part in this bust that has been going on. We're talking about 6 different arrests, but they were big ones. The operation also turned up, as you mentioned, cocaine, heroin, pressed pills, and this was all part of a network with international ties. Investigators say that they have been tracking for months. Take a listen.
I will tell you that this investigation did target the entire illicit supply chain of narcotics, from the distributors in Mexico all the way to the wholesale and street-level distributors here in the United States. We believe that these drugs that ended up here in Long Island are coming from the Mexican cartels.
The DEA says that fentanyl seizures across all law enforcement agencies have surged more than 1,700% over the last 6 years. And officials here today say that this incredible bust, 6 guys were taken into custody, but each of them had their own drug trafficking ring. Many of them were selling to undercover narcotics agents. And they said the amount of drugs that were taken off the street saved countless lives. Blake.
Our Laura Ingle live tonight in New York. Laura, thank you. Joining us now here on the Hill, retired Air Force 4-star General Philip Breedlove. He's the former commander of U.S. European Command, Supreme Allied Commander of NATO as well. General, it is so nice to have you here with us, especially on this Friday evening. I thank you, sir. Let's start over with Venezuela, because the U.S. has these forces that are moving, that are building off the coast. We've seen the videos nonstop. It's like every other day at this point. Your assessment tonight of where our military is at this point and what options the commander-in-chief has potentially at his fingertips.
Well, Blake, first of all, thank you for having me on. Your picture really says it all. This is a large amount of force. And I think you've heard in the last several days that the president has sort of rearranged his national security priorities. And he's putting the Western Hemisphere first, even before China, and then all the others following behind China. And this is a very concrete demonstration of that realignment of priorities, because this force, as you asked, does give the commander-in-chief a lot of options for what he could or couldn't do along the coastline or even inshore in Venezuela.
Man who runs the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of the Department of War, was out before the cameras today, General. You know, if you zoom out for a second of what we've seen here in just the last 2 months or so, we have these strikes. You had the president the other day talking about the resumption of nuclear tests. And then you had the renaming of the Department of War from the Department of Defense to Department of War. So it seems like there's this lean in, this shift. And here's what the Secretary of War, said today, and we'll take it up on the other side.
We're not building for peacetime. We are pivoting the Pentagon and our industrial base to a wartime footing. Building for victory should our adversaries FAFO.
I'll keep it PG if you don't know FAFO. It's bleep around and find out. Okay, that's the PG version of it. But what about this idea of we're on a wartime footing now? Is the secretary right there, or do you think that goes too far?
Well, honestly, I believe we've been at war for a long time. You know, the old thinkers, people like Clausewitz, Sun Tzu, Jomini, they all say the same thing in their own language, which is the enemy gets a vote. Mr. Putin has been at war with the West and certainly with the United States for a long time. So we have said for several years that we're competing with them. Well, here's my thought. If your enemy is at war with you and you are competing with them, then you're losing. And so I think that we have some tough decisions to make. And one of the things, while I may not agree with everything, but one of the things that is really important that the secretary said is we need to get our industry on a different footing. We're flat-footed right now. Other people in the world are creating military power at a great rate, and we still have no excess capacity here in the United States.
You know, it's so interesting you bring that up because NewsNation was reporting today that the U.S. Army plans to buy at least 1 million drones over the next 3 years. You heard that right. 1 million drones. And then after that, potentially add on another 500,000 to 1 million or so annually. There was something that happened between President Trump and Vladimir Zelensky when the Ukrainian leader was here just a few weeks ago that made me stop in my tracks. Here it was, and then we'll pick it up.
Ukraine has such thousands of our production drones, but we don't have Tomahawks.
We have a lot of drones right now. We build our own drones, but we also buy drones from others, and they make a very good drone.
It was the concept of a trade of essentially Tomahawks for drones. In general, I thought to myself, we have the biggest, the best, the baddest military on planet Earth, and we might need to lean into another nation for drones. How does that all add up?
Well, it's the truth. We do.
How's that the truth, though? Like, it's remarkable, is it not?
It just is. We are behind at least 3 nations in the world in drone production. What we're going to produce next year, the secretary mentioned, is not even half of what Zelensky and Ukraine are going to build. And it's not half of what Russia is going to build. We are woefully behind the rest of the world in being ready for not only offensive drone warfare, but counter drone warfare. We are not prepared for even what Iran sends at Israel, much less what Russia sends at Ukraine. We are woefully unprepared for that level of drone warfare.
Those drones, those Ukrainian drones that took out the Russian bombers earlier this summer, the cost of them, basically $600 to $1,000 each. That's it.
It was the tactic that made that work so well, not the drones. It was the tactic.
Remarkable. Retired 4-star General Philip Breedlove. Nice to have you in, sir. Thank you.
Good to see you, Blake.
You as well. Still to come tonight. Day 38, government shutdown. President Trump shows his patience could be wearing.
The Republicans have voted 14 times to open up the country, and the Democrats have voted 14 times to hurt the country, really.
Are senators actually going to be working into the weekend? Is there an end in sight? And what's California Governor Gavin Newsom up to? On the other side.
This Veterans Day, Leland Vittert goes inside the nation's most historic military academy and sits down with Bill O'Reilly to explore America's military legacy. America's Greatest Warriors, Tuesday at 10/9 Central, only on NewsNation.
We're shut down, as you probably know, because the Democrats have gone, they're crazy. They're crazy, but they don't care if they hurt the country.
President Trump earlier today, as you can hear there, venting over the standoff in Congress. Earlier today, Chuck Schumer, the Senate majority leader, came out and said, look, maybe we have some sort of a way forward. Open the government back up and extend the Obamacare tax credits for another year. Republicans immediately said, get that out of here. And here we are. Full panel here with me now. Mark Short, former chief of staff to Vice President Mike Pence. Chris Darwell, host of the Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Emily Brooks, congressional reporter for The Hill. And joining us in cyberspace, Chris Hahn, former senior aide to Democratic Senator, the aforementioned Chuck Schumer. Hello to you all. Happy Friday. We almost made it to the end of the week. The government's still shut down. I asked all of you when you thought this would end. Hahn, you're the most optimistic. Why? You say this weekend.
Well, I was asked at 3 o'clock in this afternoon, and I actually thought that Ron Johnson had a bill to pay government workers while it's shut down, to bring the air traffic controllers back. I thought some Democrats would get behind that bill, but after the Republicans shot down Chuck's bill real quick, I think that just failed. But I still think it's going to happen soon, and it might happen Sunday night. I think that there needs to be a change in the dynamic so that we bring the House back, for example, and get people back to work on this. I don't understand why the president hasn't woken up to the fact that the American people are blaming him particularly for this and asked for a sit down with Democrats. I don't get it. And now that he's on a plane to Florida, maybe that won't happen. And it might be harder for him to get back on Sunday night. So maybe it goes a little longer. So
as I remind the audience often, Mark Short in a former life was the line between the Oval Office and Congress for Donald Trump, right?
That line got run over a lot.
You say Tuesday, November 11th. Why? You're just
I'm pretty close to Chris.
Yeah,
I think it'll be through the weekend that the Senate reaches a resolution, and then it'll take a couple of days for the House to get back and vote on it. So that's why I'm saying the 11th. I mean, I don't agree on the sense of the president. I think the reality is the Democrats caused the shutdown. By definition, almost every Democrat voted not to fund the government, and almost every Republican voted to fund the government except for Massey and Rand Paul. And so they've created this. They're the ones that need to get us out of it.
When I saw Donald Trump earlier this week say no SNAP benefits, end the filibuster, and Sean Duffy came out and said we're going to start reducing flights, that to me sounded at the time, Mark, that was the way for the White House to say, okay, we want this to end. Is that right?
I think it was more the day after the election when he said
You think it was that? Okay.
Well, he says to the senators, I think the shutdown's hurting you guys. Like it was like, nothing, it's hurting you guys. And I think for the Senate Democrats, that gives them the belief that, hey, we can carry this out a little bit longer if the president's looking to get out of this and negotiate.
Emily, you're not far after Mark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said the 14th, which is a week from today, a Friday. And, there was some movement. Things have been, talking a little bit, but we're really not to the point of go time yet. I think after talking with a few senators, after I sent in that guess, maybe that's a little bit too optimistic. What Democrats put out was exactly what Republicans have been saying they cannot accept for more than a month now. We knew when we started this that no, we were not going to extend this until the government is open. We're not negotiating this. That's exactly what Democrats put forward. So what's next? We don't have a schedule yet for what's next.
So before I get to Chris, I had Tim Burchett, Congressman, on the show just a little while ago. Here's what he said, and then we'll pick it up. Over, under Thanksgiving, this ends. What are you taking?
I think it's going to go on after Thanksgiving.
You think?
Yeah, I think the pain's going to continue until the TSA, you have the 3 or 4 Democrats peel off and capitulate.
So maybe you're Vegas, Chris, because you're right on the line there. You're the day before Thanksgiving. Why?
The jet fumes, right? They're going to want their break. If they make these people work over their Veterans Day week break, they're going to be cranky already. The last day before Thanksgiving seems like, you pick. The other thing, of course, is the continuing resolution that is in the Senate expires on the 21st of November. The House has not been in session for 49 days or something like that. The House is going to have to pass another continuing resolution because this one is now too short. There was a way of thinking that might have been right prior to 3 o'clock today, which was you know what, maybe they'll just do 2 weeks. They'll take the 2 weeks that are left in this thing, pass it through and negotiate for the next 2 weeks. That's not going to happen now. So the House is going to have to do something. And I promise you, when they bring the House of Representatives back, it is going to be pandemonium because there's all this pent-up reserve. A lot of people have a lot of feelings and a lot of attitudes, and so it's going to get wild. A lot of things need to get said.
That's the
get
House.
said and settled, right? All right, meantime, the Democrats closing out a strong week for that side of the aisle. For Democrats, finally, right? Maybe a little bit of relief for them. Major victories across the country on Tuesday night, but even though the messaging seems to have hit home with voters, Democrats are still left without a leader. After all, there's a Republican in the White House, right? How about this new poll out from Emerson College? College or university? Emerson College, right?
I'll go college. Feels collegey.
Shows voters still don't know who should be their new standard bearer, at least on the Democratic side. When asked who they'd vote for in 2028, the most popular answer? Undecided. 35%. Gavin Newsom, not too far behind that, I guess, with 25%. And someone else, literally right there on the scoreboard as well. Han, what do you make of it?
I say let's have a brawl. Let's have a big brawling primary like the Republicans did in 2016. It works well because it gets people interested in the party, and people could work it out. They could see how they do with the voters, and that will be the leader. Look, the Republicans were in the wilderness, leaderless, during the Obama years. Then they nominated Mitt Romney. He was the leader for a couple of weeks. Then they were leaderless again for 4 more years until they got Trump. That's the way it is when you're out of power. Somebody will emerge, and I believe somebody very strong will emerge out of this field by 2028.
Gavin Newsom said this over the weekend the other day, and then we'll pick it up. Roll it.
Why do you want to be president?
I don't. I'm not suggesting I am. I'm saying in response to someone talked about it, and I hate when nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you.
I don't want to run for president, but I hate people who lie to your face. Is that the guy that you think it's going to be?
I'm not sure that should be the standard for him.
Okay.
But look, I don't know who it's going to be for the Democrats. I think they'll have a long fight, but I also am not convinced they need to have a leader right now. I think that until you get through the midterms, the fight's going to be about the Republicans have the House, the White House, and the Senate. So it's going to be the other. And in some ways, it helps them not to have, Mamdani become a foil for Republicans. So in some ways, it helps them not to.
Yeah, I think that all of the people who were named in that poll, probably one of them has a very good shot. If we look at the past and what presidential primaries turn into, people with a name of recognition and people who people already know have a very good shot of being a future leader. Of course, maybe somebody comes out of the woodwork, but I would say probably one of those people in this poll.
You were nodding along with Mark there.
100%. It's the Republicans' job to decide who they're going to say the leader of the Democratic Party is. Just like in the Obama years, the Democrats would say, well, the real leader of the Republican Party is Rush Limbaugh. The real leader of the Republican Party is this. And now Republicans are going to try to do that with Zoran Mamdani, and it will be effective to some degree. But I will just say, I don't see anybody yet who will compete with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for the progressive lane in that party. Elizabeth Warren's not running. I don't think that Bernie Sanders is running. Who is it? Who is the person that will compete with her? I see a lot of people that are going to compete with Gavin Newsom for the normie lane. Governor after governor after governor, Pete Buttigieg. But I think she's alone over there.
You've got the best Sunday show in the biz. Who you got coming up this weekend?
Oh, we've got Byron Donalds, Republican from Florida. We've got a Democrat from Illinois. And we have, I'm very excited about Malcolm Gladwell.
Yeah, how about that?
Cool. We're going to do a little of the politics from his Tipping Point book.
That is 10 a.m. Sunday morning. Chris Steyerwalt, The Hill Sunday. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Han, thank you, sir, as well. Still to come, other side of the break. President Trump steps up to the plate for a former baseball star. Look at what's trending next. Home on this Friday evening, trying to check up on today's top stories. Here's some of what's trending over at thehill.com. Cornell to pay $60 million in deal with the Trump administration to restore federal research funding. The deal between the Ivy League and the White House could restore more than $250 million. The settlement stems from the administration's accusations of racial discrimination and anti-Semitism at Cornell and, of course, other universities as well. Also trending this evening, Jamie Dimon says JP Morgan Chase not donating to the White House ballroom, quote, we have an issue. The CEO says the company's being careful about avoiding anything that would look like it is, quote, buying favors. And finally, how about this afternoon? Trump pardons MLB legend Darryl Strawberry. The baseball star, a 3-time World Series champ, rose to fame, you might remember, back in the 80s, but he was convicted of tax evasion in the 90s. Spent most of his major league career with the Mets and the Yankees, Trump's hometown teams. To check out those stories and more, all you have to do is head on over to thehill.com. By the way, scan that QR code if you want on your screen. All right, time for my take now. You know, it's hard to find some good news when it comes to the massive airport delays as we approach mid-November and, in turn, the busiest holiday travel portion of the year. So not to get too off track too much, but how about this? Amtrak is now reporting record sales, which could be a direct consequence of the airport turmoil. According to the National Passenger Rail System, quote, Amtrak predicts record-breaking 2025 Thanksgiving travel with double-digit growth in early bookings relative to last year. Amtrak expects to set new records in revenue and ridership. Now, depending on the distance you're traveling this holiday season, it's possible the train might not be an option. But I will say the thought of no long lines, nowhere near as many delays, and yes, even a bar car can make a family trip a little less stressful. So here tonight on day 38 of this shutdown, we say, you know what? Maybe it is time for Congress to read an old classic, The Little Engine That Could. Coming up next here on News Nation, Hannah Doba is filling in for Elizabeth Vargas. She'll be talking to the State Department about the Pentagon's latest strike on that suspected drug boat in the Caribbean. That's coming up just seconds away. It has been a wild week in the world of politics. We had elections. The government shutdown still continues. We'll be here for it all next week. I thank you so much for watching us. I'm Blake Berman.